just because of the actions of a few.
No,
Um,
definitely.
and it's unfortunate. I mean, that's what happens oftentimes with a lot of different people. Like, um, in the media, black people are painted in a bad light. Latinos are painted in a very bad light as well,
Exactly.
especially with the current administration. So, I mean, with Muslims, it's been happening since 9/11. So, I
No.
mean, I guess I could say I'm used to it. Like, I'm never surprised when I see like Muslims being insulted on the like mainstream media, but like it's still disappointing.
You brought up
It's
two variables right there that I thought were interesting. You said you brought up 9/11 and media as being something that can just bring up tensions. And first, when you brought up 9/11, would you trigger that as something very influential as to stereotypes people generalize about Muslims?
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, like now you have like people like ISIS going around
Yeah.
too right now. That was just like that was like many American people's first exposure to Muslims, right? So these
Mm-hmm.
people who hijacked the planes were claiming to be Muslims. So I mean, most even today, most Americans haven't actually met a Muslim. All they see is the people they see on TV, the people who who are talked about on the news, stuff like that. So all the bad stuff gets projected out there. But then you have
Yeah.
uh, almost 3 million, 30 million Muslims living in America
Mm-hmm.
today, just trying to live their life in various cities. There's a pretty decent sized community over here
Mm-hmm.
that, especially on ASU too, a lot of foreign
Yeah.
students from Muslim countries and stuff, big local population.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people don't get to know those kind of people, right? So I mean, the university itself is very like it's very opening and welcoming to
Yeah.
different people with different backgrounds. But I mean, like the rest of the country, or the rest of the community, right? So I work at a coffee shop in like Awatuki, so that's a very
Mm-hmm.
white neighborhood.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times, like if people like when I get talking to some customers and stuff, like they'd never. I'm the first Muslim that they've met.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm. They have no idea what they see me as a person as a
Yeah.
before that, and then
Yeah.
they already have their preconceived notions of what a Muslim is. So I guess it's up to the regular everyday Muslims to kind of combat that stereotype by being good people consistently.
Yeah. And you brought up the notion that people have never met Muslims in face to face, in a face to face encounter, and then you brought up the aspect that media has a large influence on stereotypes in that. And I'd like to bring up the fact that media, when you say that people only like to bring up the bad stuff and exploit that on media, would you agree that media does a or only like prolongs the fact that they try to focus on the bad stuff instead of trying to focus on the good in a religious group such as Muslims? Would you agree?
I mean, for the most part, I mean, because that's the stuff that gets headlines. Like, you can't blame them sometimes.
Yeah,
Like, they're
definitely.
going for what gets the ratings and stuff. So, I mean, not all media does that. Like, some outlets do it more consistently than others. But even like places that are supposed to be neutral or places that are supposedly like left leaning and have like propout like this notion of equality and this notion of being good to everybody sometimes give bad people a platform to kind of spout hate or to espouse like bad views about Muslims or whatever. So I think consistently, yeah, the media definitely does a good job at showing various groups in bad lights because I mean it's it's good to have an enemy, I guess, and for the country to have an enemy. I don't know. And it's good ratings for to have like sensationalist news. So
Yeah. Would you say that they do it on purpose?
oh, for sure, yeah, definitely. I
And
would
would
say so.
and would you say that racism can be a trigger or a driving force behind that, or do you just strictly think that money talks in this sense, or can you connect this to the racial tensions in today's world in this society?
I mean, it can't. We can't just point it at like one certain thing. So race definitely plays a big role into it. I mean, when we talk about Muslims, it's never mentioned in the media that Islam is like the fastest growing religion in America, like
Mm-hmm.
in terms of conversions, right? The
Yeah.
biggest demographic of converts are single white women, like converting to Islam. So like you have, but the people who are shown as Muslim are just like Arab people. I'm not even Arab myself. I was born Muslim, but
Yeah.
my family's from India. So I mean, but I mean, there's definitely racism involved. I mean, even though Islam is not a race, it's a
It's a religion.
religion. I mean, it's dominated mostly by certain ethnic groups just because of how history is played out. So I mean, racism plays a role in it, the same way how black people are being like shown in the media and how Latino people are being shown in the media.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it goes into like racism and kind of like this othering like that the media does. But also, I mean, it can't all be attributed to racism. I don't think certain people who maybe have these types of views are necessarily like openly racist. Maybe they're committing like some types of microaggressions here and there, but not like all out I hate you,
Yeah.
that type of logic.
Do you get offended by microaggressions if somebody comes up to ask you, "Oh, where are you from?" automatically thinking that you're from somewhere else? Do you get offended?
Uh, I don't really get offended because I mean this is how I mean the world is changing, so I think some people just aren't used to that. Like
Yeah.
that's how you talk back like before, even like up until 5 years ago. I mean like yeah, like I tell them I was born here and I explain to them like oh XY like whatever, and then I tell them what maybe sometimes depending on the person I'll tell them maybe why that wouldn't be such a good question to ask to other people. Like I'm fine with it, but some people might
Yeah.
get offended by it.
Yeah. Do you
Uh,
like?
I mean, but like once I don't like to overreact. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't get too offended by microaggressions or whatever. But
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you can tell when there's like malicious intent behind it versus just being like some like an innocent question, like someone making conversation.
Yeah. Gotcha. Um. It's funny though that we've grown used to like taking those types of questions as something just normal, you know. It's not something to be offended by. It's just something that society is like coming accustomed to, you know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think we're in an age of where like we're trying to be overly politically correct just to make up for a lot of the atrocities and stuff like that that's happened
Oh yeah,
before.
I definitely agree with that.
Self-correcting things. I mean, overall, it's been good. I don't have a problem with it, but yeah, some people might get offended by it, but I
Mhm.
personally don't.
Gotcha. Yeah. What was I gonna lead onto that? Oh, lost my train of thought. My dogs are barking, man. Sorry about that.
No worries. No
Apologize.
worries.
Um, you speaking about